What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Rhomas Men's Team Podcast. Today, interviewing Kevin Quinlan, one of my closest friends. Super cool story. Kev has always been overweight his entire life. And then, long story short, he tells you in the podcast exactly how he lost 100 pounds. Tells you what was easy about it, what was hard about it, what kind of food he ate with the programming and all those things. And then also what I'm super excited about is Kev actually agreed to do a Rhomas Men's Weight Loss Team podcast where he talks about his journey more in depth on how he lost all of the weight, how he's keeping the weight off, his struggles still, it's still hard, right? Just because you lost 100 pounds doesn't mean it's easy after that. So what is he still going through? And then I give more details about how I've won several bodybuilding competitions, all of those things, what I've done, what I still do today, different diets that I've tried, different diets that I'm trying, different supplements, all of those kinds of things. If you want way more in-depth information, then head over to our Rhomas Men's Weight Loss Team podcast. And then as always, guys, if you like the stuff that we're doing and if you want to support our channel, please head over to Patreon, search Rhomas, which is RHOMAS. You can actually support the Rhomas Men's Weight Loss Team podcast there. And you can also support the Rhomas Men's Team podcast. So just so you guys know, Rhomas Men's Team podcast is for setting goals, achieving goals, all of those things. And if you want to go more into the domain of weight loss, if you're on that journey currently, then definitely check out that content too, because very, very, very specific action items and very specific content dedicated to supporting you in your weight loss or muscle building journey. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed the episode. I am super pumped today because we, thanks to Jana Dinte, I want to give him a shout out. This episode is dedicated towards Jana Dinte. We've got Mr. Kevin Quinlan back in action. He's going to now take over and implement as teacher on a new course that we're going to be teaching on for men's weight loss and muscle building and so on. Just to give people a quick background, we were teaching a lot of people this on, men who wanted to lose weight and gain muscle and all of that, everything in between, for a while. And we had a podcast up, and we're now transitioning to bring it under the Rhomas platform, so that, if you want to be performing in areas of work and athletics and, family, relationships, money, etc., we're going to be talking about that on the Rhomas platform. But then if you really want to take a deep dive into losing weight and building muscle and really the health aspect, we're now going to be going full scale into that category as well. And Kev, one of my best friends growing up in school, since grade school, he and I have been through a lot together on our fitness journeys. So he's going to take the leadership on teaching a lot of you a lot of the tactics and strategies we've used. So just to give you some quick background, I'm going to embarrass Kev a little bit here. So we love teaching men how to do this, how to achieve their goals in the fitness area. And I'm going to embarrass you real quick, bud, and then I'll let you speak to these guys out here. But I want to show you some before and after pictures. So let's see here. Let me share my screen. For those of you listening on podcasts, if you want to view the YouTube channel, you'll see Kev's before and after and my before and after. So let's share this with you guys here. So here's Kev right here. So you can see on the left, Kev at, 250 plus pounds, it's kind of a his former life, drinking beer, doing all that stuff. And then now his after picture, he actually lost 100 pounds. We kind of coached each other. He helped me in my muscle building and, psychology and all that stuff. And then he and I worked together on him losing 100 pounds. So, Kev, has basically, and Kev, if you don't mind me saying this, has been overweight, pretty much all of his life until he made a decision. What was that, 9 years ago, you said?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So 9 years ago, going through the majority of his life. And then all of a sudden he made a decision and said, hey, I want to lose some weight. Like, Wes, why don't you and I go at this together? And, you help coach me and do all that stuff. So that's what we did. He lost 100 pounds. Now it took him a long time to get there. That's also an important thing to know. One of the things we want to get into here is authenticity, right? Like actually teaching people what it really takes to achieve those types of goals, and so on. And here's another before and after picture of Kev. So again, 100 pounds down. And then here's a before and after picture of me. And we're only showing you these things because between Kev and I, if you want to lose as much weight as possible in the best and healthiest way and an efficient way possible, then Kev's your guy. If you want to talk about gaining, getting a six pack, gaining muscle, doing all that stuff, and then I'm your guy. So we make a really, really solid team. And the cool thing is that it's it's because we're not sitting there in a gym for 9-10 hours a day, like doing this stuff. That's actually a good thing. Like we will teach you how to do it in a half hour a day or 20 minutes a day or whatever the space of time is that you need, because you go out and then you work, right? I think that one of the problems that we have with a lot of fitness programs out there is if they're legitimate, then it's basically like, yeah, go in the gym for 5 hours a day, and you'll have great results. It's like, yeah, of course. Like, but do you have 5 hours a day? Now, each Kev and I have done that. Like we've been in the gym for 4, 5, 6 hours at a time. So like we can talk to you about that, but we've also done programs for ourselves and for each other where it's 20 minutes, and that focuses on nutrition and all this stuff. So anyway, wanted to give you a quick background as to, why we feel like we can comment on this stuff, because we've run the gambit of anywhere from me getting to 2.5% body fat, competing on stage for men's physique bodybuilding to all the way on the other side of the spectrum, Kev losing 100 pounds. We really have the full spectrum. So I'm super confident in our team of Kev and I to really provide some guidance here. And again, big shout out to Jana Dinte, because our former podcast where we taught men how to do this stuff, he reached out to us and basically said, hey, like I want you guys to come back and teach us. So big shout out to him. So anyway, long-winded way of me saying welcome. Kevin Quinlan is the new teacher in Rhomas for the Rhomas men's weight loss team. We're now formally kicking that off, and this is the first episode and introducing you guys to it. So Kev, what's up, brother?
Hey guys, Wes, what's going on? This is awesome. Thanks for having me, and definitely looking forward to being on here and with the new show and just helping as many people as we can with this who are seriously interested in making progress with this area in their lives.
Yeah, man, it's awesome to have you. I'm super pumped. You're like a brother to me, so it's cool doing this together. And I think we can help a lot of people. We've gotten a lot of messages from people around this category, so I want to launch it, and have a conversation around this. So if you can, walk us through some of your backstory, Kev. Like, what was childhood like with weight, and you're battling with weight and all those types of things, and then what was the transition over into, okay, like I can do this. Like if this guy over here can lose 30 pounds, why can't I lose 30, and so on?
Yeah. So basically for me, I mean, that's funny. I do look back at like pictures, and I started becoming overweight, obese. Like my weight problem really started in early, like elementary school. I kind of look back and I saw like a transition somewhere around like third grade, and it kind of stuck with me. And again, like part of that is definitely, actually all of that is because of like the lifestyle that I had in terms of what I ate, what I drank. And then like, I was definitely like a video game guy. So, I would literally come home from school, and I don't know, I didn't have a whole lot. Like I have phenomenal parents, but they had 4 kids. There was other stuff going on. Things were available. So I think a large part of how I got to where I got was because of what I was putting in my body at the time. And like, you start doing that. We'll talk about like the idea of the compound effect, which is a really good book by Darren Hardy. But like the just the compound effect of doing that at an early age, like every day for years and years and years, definitely contributed to like that, that happening so early, like I said, I would come home, couple sodas. I mean, I wasn't really keeping track. Could be like a bag of chips that is definitely not meant for like, it was not a snack size. And then you're in front of the games and stuff. So, that kind of was like early elementary to like middle school. I did play football and some sports, and that seemed to have helped. Like when I was actually like in sports season, because I was so young and because I was, football, I mean, when you're that, especially when you're heavy, like I was a backup lineman. Right. So I was with all the linemen, like, and the really good ones are like kicking my ass, and I'm like going against them. And like, yeah, I got like, when I played football, like it worked, like just because of that activity, like of getting back to like kind of like a more normal weight, like not looking better and everything. But then, once the season ends, you kind of revert back to those habits, which is another topic we can talk about for endless episodes. And that's kind of what you have going on there, similar deal with like ice hockey, like sweated a lot, got like and actually like when I got to high school, I played ice hockey for the first time in my life, which is a phenomenal workout. And I did join Weight Watchers, which was really fun. It's kind of funny, cool. And I actually enjoyed the program. I was like 16, right? Somewhere around 14 to 16, like one of, if not the only guy, definitely like the youngest guy in person, like typically their demographic, definitely is more heavily favored like towards women, probably like around 70%, at least back then, maybe even more. And definitely like an older demographic, but they took really good care of me. I think they had like a lot of good information, and actually what they did was that was like the first time in my life that I actually like tracked. They had their point system, of course, but like I tracked calories and started to learn some of the basics about things. And that seemed to work for a little while. I mean, again, I had ice hockey going on throughout high school. And then, you get to college and, the weight, like really basically that summer of like after high school, where I was down at the beach for 10 weeks, eating, drinking, not really much activity. Season is done. Like I start to creep back up to, and I'm only like 5'11". So I start to creep up to like 230, 240, hit college. That stuff continues. Like I'm not a college athlete. So, I'm in fraternities and there's social events and there's college dining plans and like all this stuff. And I definitely lost grasp of like the basics of anything that I had ever done that gave me some little like hints of success with weight loss. And, I had a couple different like moments. I think like at one point, like halfway during my sophomore year, I got into like running and started to do like a little bit again, but all those were always like temporary things that didn't turn into habits. I may have had like a short-term goal or motivator that got me, maybe I lost 10 or 20 pounds. But again, so flash forward through all that. I know it's kind of like a long story, but
no, man.
We get to like graduation my senior year and I'm like 250. I know for a fact I saw the numbers 250 on a scale. I want to say even at one point, I think I was above that, like maybe somewhere around 252, 254. But I know at least at one point I was 250. And then, I had no muscle. Like I wasn't doing, consistent weightlifting. And again, that's like a really unhealthy weight for someone that's 5'11", that's not an athlete with, a BMI of probably like somewhere in the mid to high 40s, So yeah, that's kind of like where I went. And then you have like college part two, like all you can see, like this is just like trending and continuing. And it's the lifestyle that, I chose to do and surround myself. And then I kind of get to like a couple years after college and kind of like I'm still right around there. And then, then I kind of get into where I would start to make like a serious lifestyle change. And I can go into that, but I just wanted to give you that kind of background story of how I got where it really started at such an early age. And then how it like balloons and kept going until, I'm at, a couple of years out of college.
Yeah. When like, and let's walk through some of like the real shit, like, because I can say there's emotional reasons as to why like I pursue fitness and like why it's so important to me and why I try to protect it with everything I have. Like what are the few of those triggers? Because I think sharing your triggers with everybody is so important because there's other guys who have the same triggers. So was it a girl? Was it, hey, like, I gained a bunch of weight just because it was, it was convenient. Like, my family just had Doritos lying around all the time. And then I didn't realize I was overweight. And then I asked a girl out and she said no. Like, what, like all of us have that story. So what were those, textural stories for you?
Yeah. And before I get into that too, I will say like the whole, like the weight that I carried, dude, it was like a thing. Like it was like a huge insecurity, very little did I like really have conversations like this growing up and really talking about it with that many, like really with anyone, I tackled sport where I could, and that was like just a temporary fix, but I mean, it was definitely something I carried with me. It was like just like the monkey on your back or like the crux that you just, keep going with.
Right.
And it did like, I did have like a lot of insecurities about it, but to answer your question there, I just had like it was females. Like I had an experience. This girl I was super, super interested in, kind of like towards the end of college and after college that I was kind of like going after, went on a date or two and like kind of went in for the move and got like totally like completely rejected. And like, I was very, very, very like interested. I had like strong feelings for this girl. And for some reason, like it was just like that night, I remember when I got rejected and like the pain that it felt, it just like, It was something for some reason that just kind of like lit a fire under me. I remember like kind of just chilling outside, like where I was in Philadelphia, like on this balcony that night after it had happened. And like, I kind of just, I don't know. I think I just stayed up from like 2 a.m. to like 6 a.m. and knew I was going to get the first train out of the city. And I'm just like staring up, looking at the sky. And I'm like, something's going to change after this. Like, and I can go more in depth in the story, but that's kind of like the short version of it is like, you know, I was all in about this girl. We had gone out once or twice. I'm still 250, you know, 245, 250 at the time. And, you know, I guess maybe I didn't pick up on any signs that I just didn't pick up on stuff. And then but at the end of the day, like she was like a very attractive girl. She was extremely fit. And, you know, I guess, you know, she was not interested in me. And so I can only put like 2 and 2 together and, you know, make an association that like, yeah, man, like, would you want, like, face the facts? Like, would you want to, you know, be with you right now? I mean, I know that can sound like some people might want to face the music, but like generally, like, listen, some people are attracted to all different things, right? But there is a certain population of people that are attracted to other people that are average or fit or muscular. And like, I wasn't any of those. So it kind of made sense. And I didn't want to feel that pain again. So I think like, I don't know if it was the next day. I don't know. I'm sure we could dig up like the email archives of, you know, in Gmail, and you and I might find some dialogue of those first couple of emails. I think that's how it started. And then like, I don't know, it was either like we kept in touch for a couple months and then I ended up permanently moving back up from DC to Philly. And I was like, dude, I want to work together with you. I think if I remember right, like you told me some things to get, and I was starting to make some like modest changes. Like back in DC, I would like start going to the track and trying this and dabbling here with like different things that we now teach teach the guys and everything. But that was like my sign and my motivator that like for a very, very long time got me going and really helped me. Remember the numbers, like, I think it was 92 pounds in 9 months that I lost. And that was always the thing that I thought about that experience before, like, I would focus on the gym, or it was the thing that helped me in the kitchen. Like, all right, I'm going to do meal prep because this is going to help me avoid that situation happening again, you know, in my mind. So that's kind of the story. And that's kind of what really got me going. And you flash forward 9 years ago, and I can't use that exact girl, that exact story. Cause like now it has fallen, like now it's so distant in my mind. Like I have to find other motivations and other short-term and long-term goals. But that one, you know, certainly helped like this whole lifestyle shift and change for the better. So, you know, if I could tell people, like, as hard as it is, like, don't run or hide from the pain. Like, just like feel it. Like I felt it that night, and I didn't go to sleep right away when it happened. I stayed up for like 6 hours. I'm not saying you have to do my approach, but like I stayed up and I thought about it, and it was like very clear what I was going to do. So I felt the pain, allowed it to sink in, and then just kind of took action. But that's what it took for me to really, you know, start to make some significant changes for the long term, and, you know, for the better, and turn, you know, develop new habits and all that stuff that we'll talk about.
No, well, I mean, the best way that I can describe it is that you owned your pain. You know, you didn't run away from it, and you didn't say it was not real and make a whole bunch of excuses. You said, like, this is a real thing, right? And this, if this is the results that me and my body are producing right now, and because of this, and if there's a way if I can increase or optimize myself, then really allowing yourself to feel that. I mean, and guys don't talk about it enough, like really allowing that pain to sink in, because especially as men, and especially from being men from the East Coast, we are taught to just say, like, yeah, whatever, right? Like, not talk about it, like take it down, like shove it all the way down to our toes, and just like doesn't come up, like have another beer, man, like that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't sit there and really allow yourself to absorb that pain and really feel it, but don't take it overboard, right? But take it pretty close to the edge.
Sure.
You know, getting the full spectrum of that feeling, then that's what's going to motivate you to do the thing. It's like not having so much of an ego about, like, you didn't have an ego. It's like, oh shit, like this is a real thing, and I need to change. There's something that I can do. And then you started doing it, man. And that's what we're here for. Like coming to that, having that understanding of like, there's a problem and I want a certain result. Now I encountered a barrier. There's a problem. And you should only be playing the game for real results, for like results that you really want to achieve. So for you, and for all of us, right? Like, for most of us listening to this, it's like, it's the girl, it's the counterpart that we're running after. And then boom, rejection happens. And where most guys would say, oh yeah, whatever, man. Like, I'm not into her either. But that's a lie. Like, we know that's a lie. Yeah, it's a lie.
I mean,
you might tell your bud that, but it's a fucking lie.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is, and we've talked about this too, like, I think most people, like, obviously you can remove like, players and like, whatever. But like most people want to find like an optimal spouse or girlfriend or wife and everything. It's like, yeah, like the girl I'm talking about from back then, like I looked at that as like a possibility. So, and I think about that. So like, when you get met hard in the face of like rejection, and maybe like, and I didn't see it coming. Like, that's the craziest thing either. But yeah, I mean that, and I don't blame her. I didn't like take it. I didn't like be like, oh, she's not, like I didn't, I was just like, all right, that happened. Like that sucks. I'm going to feel it. And I really let it like light a fuel, like a fire under my ass whenever we were like, all right, we're at the gym. Like, let's focus. Let's do the punching bag. Let's do the circuit workout. And I literally like, I don't know. I think I remember like you let me think about it for like 30 seconds or 45 seconds before we would start our sessions, before our circuits and stuff. And you're like, are you ready? And I'm like, yeah. And like, I literally could, if I felt like if I didn't do that, my intensity would not have been what it was for those workouts, which led to like increased progress and gains or weight loss. And it was just channeling something negative that happened to you in a positive way. And I know a lot of people struggle with that. Like, it's hard. Like, people turn to bad things and other things when shit hits the fan, or their heart's broken, or whatever, however you want to define it. But that made sense to me at that point for what I wanted to do.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, so it's first acknowledging that pain and then saying, I'm going to change it. And then for guys, like, you have to get there. Like, you have to say, you have to be a man and assume the responsibility. It's like, no, there actually is something in change. It's not my circumstance. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people are taught like, oh, it's my DNA, right? Like, I've got big bones, or like, it's just not my thing. It's like, what would you say to those people thinking that? Because that's a barrier that a lot of people face.
Yeah, I felt it. I faced it too. It was like, I remember asking you, I was like, and I sound like a second grader when I asked this question. I asked you like a couple of times in the process, and I was like, Wes, will science, will exercise science allow my body to like if I'm not afraid of putting in the work, but like if the work and the math equal like a caloric deficit over, these 4, 5, 6 months when we're working this close together, will like the higher power or whatever, or like science, like allow my body to make the changes that's equivalent with the work. And like, for me, it just didn't make any sense, because like, where does all that mass go?
Right.
Like, do you sweat it out? Do you like go to the bathroom out? Like, I don't know. Like, it was just mind blowing to me, because that was like that 225 to 250 range was all I ever knew, basically from like the majority of high school to like 25. So you're talking like a 10-year gap or span where that's what you knew. And it wasn't believable to me, no matter how hard I worked, until I saw the results. And then we did like the before and after pictures on a weekly basis, and you start to see like more definition in your face, less chins, your neck's more defined, the bones in your shoulders are popping out. You can see a freaking rib for the first time in your life that's not like something you get served at a restaurant. Like, all of like these things start to happen, and then you start to make like momentum, and it's like kind of contagious. But it really takes a while for you to start believing and seeing that. And like, sometimes depending on what your starting levels are, like, it might be, you're not going to see a whole lot in like 5 or 7 pounds. It really starts when it's like you get into like double digits, like 10, 12, 15, certainly 20, like, and then there's other measures. Like, I think looking at having a lot of different ways to measure, like we had like, how do you feel on a scale of 1 to 10 with your mood? How do you like, let's take the fabric measuring tape and look at like, let's measure your thighs and your arms and your chest and your belly. And like, like we did all that. And so all those things were kind of more like positive reinforcements that say, hey, like this shit is working. So yeah, I mean, those before after pictures, you started off the show with showing our before afters. And I think they're like super important to have, and to like, they're really a tool. It gives you, like, anytime you kind of get into a rut and you're struggling, you can look back and say, hey, I freaking did this before. So even Jonna, who you mentioned at the beginning of the show, when I was talking to him, he was like, hey man, like, you know, I'm kind of there too. Like, but the key thing is, he's like, I've done this before. I you know, I was around 200 and I lost 70. I got down to 130. And, you know, so having that in place, like those pictures to look back to, especially when you're struggling and you think like, hey, I don't know why I can't put this together. It's like, well, you did it before, so you can do it again. It's just kind of a matter of focusing and doing what you did to get there before. So anyway, those are all different like little tools and tips that I can tell you to kind of look back to you know, give yourself feedback on when things are working.
Yeah, I think having as many, I mean, it's a fine line. You don't have to have 55 metrics, but you need 3 to 10 metrics, because you're right. Like there are times when, and this happened for both you and I, it happens for everybody, where, you know, you step on the scale and it's 3 pounds heavier, but you're like, how the hell is it 3 pounds heavier? Like I just did all this work for the last, you know, 24 hours, like, or whatever it is, right? Like how's it 3 pounds heavier? Well, there's a lot of variables at play, right? Like your water retention, how much sodium have you had, and all those things. So it's at those times where it's like, okay, well, let me look at my other measurements. Oh shoot, like, yeah, the scale's up 3 pounds, but my waist is down 2 inches. You know, so really managing that. And then oftentimes what you're alluding to, what you and I did, which I thought was great, which was like, I think we started off every measurement cycle was like, how do you feel? You know, where are you at in that spectrum? And like on a scale of 0 to 10, like, are you happy? Like all of those things. And so really always having a positive metric to acknowledge yourself in, as simple as it sounds, is so important, because the journey's long. I mean, it doesn't have to be 20 years, right? But it's not 10 days, right? It's a long time. And, you know, so with that being said, what are some of the pitfalls that you've gone down in terms of like, you know, did you try supplements? Like, did you try like weird programs because like they had really good marketers behind them? Like what's that journey been like for you?
Yeah. So, I didn't really do any like of the supplements that people might like naturally think of. I can tell you that, when I lost like the 90 pounds in 9 months, the one thing that I did do was a veggie green drink. It's like a powder. And, I think we kind of talked about that. And also the reason why I did do it is because my diet before that, like what I was eating, I had such a lack of like micronutrients because I wasn't eating hardly any vegetables, if any at all. And to then start to gradually make changes for what I needed, that was like a quicker way for me to get, I mean, it wasn't fun. Like I don't enjoy doing like the green drink, but that definitely served a purpose, to get like, to start kind of get like the vegetables and the nutrients that I needed in at that time. So that was primarily like the main supplement. I mean,
that was it. I think that's all we did. Like,
yeah, pretty much.
But how about before? How about like before you actually got on the right track? Like, if you don't mind me asking, like, you know, I'm sure you've seen people take weight loss pills and all that stuff. Like, you know, give people an honest feedback of like what that shit actually does.
For sure. When I was in college, I took one of the more popular like fat blocker pills. It was like being marketed by like wrestling and like other personalities and things like that. And I remember being at the gym like one time. So one was they're probably both fat blocker. That's a scary thing. Like I can't even tell you what was in there, right? But all I remember, it was like a booster and like all this stuff. And I remember being at the gym and like lifting, and I'd only taken like whatever was considered the normal dose, like 1 or 2 of the pills. And I just remember like sweating profusely and starting to shake and feel like nauseous and really, really weak, to the point where I had to sit down on the bench. My buddy Kev, who was like lifting with me, he's like, dude, you all right? You look like really pale. And like, I just remember like, I just felt like, you know, the heart was speeding up and like just really, really bad things. And I never like, when that happened, I was like, screw this. Like this sweat's not happening because I'm working out so hard. Like it was before I really even knew how to work out hard. I was like, doing probably weightlifting exercise that, yeah, I mean, it didn't hurt to do them, but I need to be doing other things at the time. And I can tell you, it wasn't like a circuit workout. It wasn't like a hard cardio workout. Like I could have been standing and doing biceps, and that's probably what I was doing, you know? And
Right.
also, like, I just remember like all those things happening. So that was one. And then there was another fat blocker that I had taken like from some pharmaceutical company. And, you know, basically that's not really pleasant either. Like you got to be really careful with what you eat. And, you know, I think the way they frame it or describe it, like loose stools or whatever.
Yeah.
So you really got to be careful. I mean, like the stuff literally blocks the crap that you're not supposed to be eating anyway. And there's only one way for it to go. Like, and so you got to be really careful about like, you know, all that stuff, you know? So yeah, like I like fell victim to the marketing of those things. And I'm not like proud that I did it, but like, you know, back then I was, you know, 18, 19, 20, didn't really know any better. And they, you know, the companies, they just do a really good job for people that don't self-educate themselves and take the time to learn like what's really in it, what it really does, because, you know, America and a lot of the world is sold on things that are quick fixes that are marketed, you know, by the people that are like sexy, you know, the people that have the huge muscles and the six packs. And, you know, what I find really fascinating is from what I understand and read, like a lot of those people that are like the models for those products aren't even taking it themselves. They just kind of have sold out for a price to be the poster child of those products.
Oh no, man. So that's why I want you to share this story, because it's not your fault that you got roped in there. Like these are very sophisticated companies making millions, if not many more, tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars based off of selling complete shit supplements and complete weight loss pills, all this stuff. And they tell you what you want to hear, right? It's like, oh, it's not your fault, it's your DNA, but hey, we have this little pill that can help, you know, help block this or help reverse this, etc. And I can tell you for sure, I was sitting down one time at a conference and I was sitting next to this guy and he would, and it wasn't even a fitness conference. And he told me that he had lost, I think it was something crazy. I think it was like 150 pounds, something like that. And I was asking him about it, and he said, yeah, he's like, I did it through all the stuff that you and I did together, right? Like the fundamentals, the blocking and tackling. He took 0 supplements, right? Just like you did. Like what you took, just so we have clarification, you just took powdered vegetables. Like it was just literally vegetables ground up. You know, so I would, if we're going to call that a supplement, that's like the least harmful supplement. It's just literally a bunch of vegetables chopped up and dried.
And just to let the listeners know, I took that because I was so damn stubborn for a long time, and like literally like being willing to try new vegetables or try things that I had thought in my mind, like, oh, I had a carrot when I was 10, like definitely don't like that now, 25, can't do that. So because I was so stubborn, that was like, it wasn't like pleasant to do the green drink, but it's like at that time, like I would rather have like downed the shot of vegetable powder mixed with water than like chew on like broccoli, which is funny because your taste buds and things change. And then you start to like, now when I cook dinner, I'm like, well, what vegetable can I add to like the main with the dish? Like where's the veggie going to fit in?
Oh yeah. And I'm glad you said, well, I'll hit on that in a second, because your taste buds definitely change like 100%. We are just so used to consuming completely terrible food that tastes phenomenal, but it's got like no nutrients whatsoever. Once you make the switch and you start eating it, I mean, you probably had the experience where like you stop drinking Coke, and then all of a sudden you go back to Coke after drinking water and unsweetened iced tea, and that tastes really good. You taste Coke, you're like, that is terrible.
Yeah.
Like it tastes so, I mean, we've all had that experience. But one thing I want to point out with the supplements is this guy literally told me he lost that weight literally, and I'm not going to name the company because I don't know the legalities of all this stuff, but I promise you it is a very commonly marketed supplement. It might even be the one that you took in college. I have no idea, because it's been around for a while. And he told me, he's like, dude, literally this company offered me, I think it was minimum $100,000, if not multiples more. And he said, because I had my journey, right? So they wanted to put me on their posters and all that stuff, and they were going to pay me these dollars. And literally their attorneys told me, you have to sign this agreement that you will never tell anybody, right, that you actually didn't use this. That's literally, like, your suspicions are accurate. Like, that is literally what happened. He's like, dude, and he's like, I'll be honest, like, I considered doing it because money's money. Like, it'd be nice to get 100,000 or a couple 100,000, like for work I've already done, right? Like it's just a cherry on top. So if they're doing that to him, just imagine what they're paying, celebrities to market this complete BS. I don't know. I know zero people who have lost weight or got the bodies that they wanted because they took some weight loss supplement. And I don't even think like, I know in the bodybuilding world, like, obviously steroids is one thing. Like I don't have anything morally wrong with steroids, but like I personally never want to do them. I don't want to touch them. I just think there's too much of a risk. Maybe some people would say, oh, you're crazy. There's no risk at all, blah, blah, blah. Why even go down that road, right? You can achieve the body that you really want. Like, I don't want to look like I'm 260 pounds of solid muscle. Like that kind of looks weird. But even a lot of like my buddies will take like creatine and protein powders and all this stuff. And I can tell you, I stepped on stage and not once did I ever take any supplements. Actually, only one in the first week I took like CLA, which is basically like a very similar to like fish oil. But then I stopped. I was like, I want to test this. And I've never stepped on stage once, literally zero supplements. And I'm not saying that's because I'm so great. I'm just saying like, no, like you can do this in a natural and healthy way, because what you want to do is not just lose the weight, right? You want to, or gain the muscle. You want to do it for a reason, right? To make yourself a better person, to make yourself more attractive, to give yourself more energy and so on. But I imagine, and I know this is true for you and I, we want those things to happen and over the long run as well, right? Like it's not like you want to lose weight for 10 minutes, right? And then go back. I mean, so I think that's really important. Now in terms of other areas, like, and I think both you and I can speak to this as well. You mentioned you were 250 pounds, but like that was not there's no muscle in there. Right now, if we look at you, when we originally started together, and I hope you don't mind me saying this, I asked you to jump over a very small hurdle. Like I forget what it was. They're like, we're using little step masters that they use in aerobics class. Like it's just a little 6-inch step. And I asked you to jump over it, I think like 10 times. I mean, how many times do you think you got over it?
The very first night?
Yeah.
Like 3, and like some of them were not really jumps. It was like a 1-step lift off, and like my foot maybe touched the very back end of the step. And then I was like out of breath and panting, and it wasn't very much. Like I think if I did 3, like that would probably be it.
Yeah. I mean, for the listeners, if you can imagine this, imagine if you tried to put like, imagine if you got sneakers and you had a shoebox, right? Like if you were trying to jump over like maybe a shoebox, maybe 2 shoeboxes stacked on one another, like that's like almost the equivalent. Mm-hmm. Like Kev could literally not jump over that a handful of times without like taking a break, like quite literally. And now, I mean, tell them what you're up to now. Like what could you go and do tomorrow if you needed to?
Yeah. So since then, like that's one of the cool things too. So you have like this progression, and that was night 1. And then even like, I don't know, within a year, the amount of things you can do, like, and I guess even the bigger reward now is like, I'm 9 years since then, and I'm still, my endurance and my cardio and like that level of fitness is still really high. Like if somebody asked me tomorrow, if they were like, hey, do you want to do a half marathon, and it's like tomorrow and it's in, whatever nearby city, like I can say with confidence that I could do it. And then I could do it within a reasonable amount of time, like maybe, under 2.5 hours. Like I get motivated and I get endorphins from events, but I also have confidence in myself in doing those events because I've done them like since then. And if you'd asked me like night 1 or even like month 2 or 3, like the answer would have been no. But, you gradually start to like uptick, that's why it's like, I think it's really important to, we talk about like tracking your food intake and the whole, like, weight loss is math, but it is really important to be aware. And if you can, like, whether you go old school style with notebook or, somehow you're tracking digitally, like in an Excel file or something, like it's really helpful to track, whether strength training and how much weight you're lifting. So you can keep kind of challenging yourself and like building like your muscle up and everything like that. Or if you're, doing cardio and you're like, all right, I did it for 5 minutes. I did it for 10. I did it at this intensity. I did it at this incline. Like I have all these numbers in my head. Like when I go do like a lot of people hate indoor cardio. I don't mind it. I like it. I like running outdoors, and I like doing races. And I also like, I'm cool with like having a place to go to, like the gym, and crushing like a cardio workout. But my bare minimums, and I can tell you the numbers off the top of my head, like it was yesterday, is 60 minutes, a 5-minute warm up, a baseline pace of 6.5 miles per hour. And somewhere in between there, usually between every 4 and 5 minutes, I have a 1-minute sprint interval of at least 9 miles per hour. And usually each interval goes up by a tenth of a mile per hour. So by the 8th interval, I'm at 9.8 miles per hour for 60 seconds, or by the 10th interval, I'm at 10 miles per hour. Like I'm literally running 10 miles per hour for 60 seconds, like holding on for my dear life. But I'm also like, I'm conditioned to do that. And then I kind of cool it down. And like, if you'd asked me, like, if I ever saw myself doing that and then like liking it, enjoying it, like never could have imagined that. Now, maybe it's not interval treadmill for you. Maybe it's stairs, or maybe it's like running outside and doing sprints on track lengths and stuff. Like whatever it is, find what you like. Maybe it's playing like basketball, and we can talk all about that. I mean, especially if you can gamify, but that's what I've done. I've taken a very like mundane, boring activity, like indoor running on a treadmill. There's not too many people that really love it. I actually like it, but what keeps me occupied aside from the music and maybe some people watching is like, I pay attention. Like there's always a number going on that dashboard that I want to hit. And I don't pay attention to calories because those are kind of a little misleading, but at the end of the day, I know I'm sweating my ass off and I've done really good work.
Yeah. Well, and the area to really chat about here is performance, right? Like at the end of the day, it's cool to say you lost 100 pounds. At the end of the day, it's cool to say you got to a certain percent body fat. But really, like what it's trying to do, like you're trying to produce results in the world, and the way you produce results is by performance. Mm-hmm. So the fact that now, like the number is cool, yeah, down 100 pounds. But like I think the cooler number for you is, oh, I couldn't jump over a box, a very small box, more than 3 times. Now I could literally run a half marathon tomorrow. Yeah, and I would probably argue, just as a friend to a friend, you could probably run a marathon tomorrow if you really needed to. Right? I mean, like,
yeah, I mean, at a different pace than a half for sure. I did complete a marathon 2 years ago, and I'll tell you what got me through it, which is really interesting. Is it? I mean, it's physical. I'm not going to lie, but it's no surprise. It's also very mental. And to be honest with you, and I can't say like I recommend this because there's like books and videos out there from like ultra marathon, like marathon runners that say, hey, like if you really want to prepare yourself for a marathon, then you should start out with like 8 miles, and then the next time 10 miles, and then you go back to 9, and then you go to like, there's all this shit out there. And now I kind of went and did it my way. And the only reason why I did it, I did not train for it. I did. If you think that, I think I was out in California visiting you, and I was out there for 5 weeks or a month. And I think 2, maybe 3 times I ran in my favorite place in Huntington Beach, and I did 14 to 16 miles. That was it. And then literally, so like that was July, August, the race was in November. And literally from August, so when I was out in California, I mean, the last run that I had finished was probably, end of July, beginning of August. Again, 3 times did a run of maybe 14 to 16 miles, did nothing from, I shouldn't say nothing. I didn't do any long-term distance, like what they tell you to do to get ready for a marathon. I just like had 3 months of like normal workouts, a lot of cardio, but nothing longer than an hour. And just decided on race day to give it a go. What I was pretty confident because of all the things that I had done over the 6, 7, 8 years before the day of the race that I could get through it. And I did. I think I finished it. I finished it technically. The time will say just over 5 hours, but I think it's under. But because you include like bathroom breaks and stuff like that. But I guess what I'm more proud of is my goal. I didn't have a goal time. That was like really a bucket list item. I'm going to choose not to do a full again. I wanted to do it once. But I never stopped moving like at a jogging pace. Like, meaning like I was never walking. The only time I walked was the 3 times that like I had to pee, like from where I stopped to get in line, a porta potty, and then got the hell out of there and started again. Like I never stopped moving. I thought that was kind of like, when it was all said and done, I'm like, 5 hours, shit. Like that's pretty cool that I did that. So again, like it all kind of goes back to like, what if I had never gotten started, like the night of like jumping, over a box 3 times. And then as we made progress with that, like I said, it's kind of like a snowball effect in a positive direction. You start to get, how can I challenge myself further with this exercise? How can I challenge myself further with like this kind of workout? Even last summer for the summer, I joined like a circuit training gym, you know, and like rigorous workouts. Even now in coronavirus, like with this whole thing, like one of my core habits is like a certain number of days a week, I go down to my basement. I have like, you know, it's not like, it's not glamorous. Like I put an old laptop on a shelf and I watch old videos of like circuit training where only thing you need is your body weight. You don't need any equipment. It's all like running in place, jumping jacks, crab push-ups, squat jacks, like all this stuff. And guess what? Like I sweat more during that, do more during that in like 25 or 30 minutes than I would like going running outside for a leisurely stroll. But you got to find out like what's for you. And then, by the way, like not pumping myself up, but like my goal whenever I do a cardio workout is 60 minutes. That's just one of the things I've always stuck to, unless some like external circumstance pulls me back from like, hey, you only have 45 to fit 45 in. But so I will play that video 2 times, or I'll choose 2 of them and play them back to back, just because that's one of the core habits that I've kind of set for myself, is to do 60 minutes of cardio when I do cardio.
Yeah, well, I think the other part, and sorry, my neck's kind of tightening up if you see me kind of wiggling around here. The other part of that is oftentimes people will buy like a single program, whatever it is. I'm not going to call it any names, but we've all seen like the infomercials and all of those things. The cool thing about it is like you can mix it up, right? Like there's no reason why you can't do a workout in the gym and a workout outside and then do like a video workout. Like that's the other thing, is like variety actually helps with it a lot. I mean, I to this day, like my workouts change on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, depending on my energy levels or depending on how much time I have, so I think staying in the game, what really for me, and I'd like to get your feedback on this. For me, it's like I've got my time block for the day of that's like my fitness time, and I can do whatever the hell, like, and eventually you and I will teach more about this, but like whatever it is, sometimes it's just a walk. Like sometimes it's a walk up some hills or a walk around the neighborhood, whatever the minimum thing is sometimes that I could just fit in that time. And honestly, it's like, sometimes it's only 15 minutes. I mean, the majority of the time it's half hour to an hour, somewhere in that category. And then every once, like on the weekends, sometimes I'll just do it like for like 3, 4, 5 hours because I enjoy it. But the thing is that it doesn't have to be this thing where you have to do an hour and a half of like just blitz style cardio. Because in fact, oftentimes like Kev didn't start out that way.
No.
Or like you didn't start out like, doing like, burpees and all this stuff like for an hour and a half straight. It's like, let's see how you can jump over this box. Okay, let's see if you can run around the track. Let's see, like all these little incremental things. Because while you probably have a lot more bandwidth than you think you do. Like you can go a lot harder and a lot longer than you think you can. And you and I used to do that, right? Like let's push each other so you can really start to understand that your boundaries are very far away from what you actually think they are. But at the same time, you do not have to redline yourself all the time. I'd actually recommend not redlining yourself all the time, because then you're hurt. You feel terrible the next day, all that stuff. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
So you mean like setting, like when it comes to a workout, you're saying just set the time that you're going to go do something and do it, and not always have like your bare minimum numbers?
Yeah, I mean, basically, like you and I at this point, you can pick out of the hat whatever you want to do for that half hour, right? And every day, so it's like, okay, maybe some days it's whatever P90X or whatever the workout program would be, or maybe some days it's you go and do some workout at the local park, or maybe other days you go to the gym, right? That variety really helps, and for you, Kev, like you're saying, hey, I'm on the treadmill. A lot of people might not like the treadmill. Well, I can tell you, I get outside every single day and do the hills. Like it's going to have the same thing. So if that's more enjoyable for you, do not have to do one thing. And that's unfortunately, that's a product of marketing, right? There's a lot of products out there that say, oh, this is the secret. Like this is the one thing. It's like, no, there's a whole bunch of tools you can use, and it's like, use them and customize it to fit whatever space you're in at that time. Right. And there's different goals, right? Like, like losing 100 pounds is a goal, right? Or like getting to a level where you're comfortable at and where you feel good and you feel healthy. That's a different goal. Like you can change those goals depending on the season that it is.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's like, even, like I said, like the workout videos I'm doing, like, yeah, if you look at the whole thing they give you, like they plan it out for 90 days, but you don't have to do it. Like I can do it every other day and then fill in it, like, XYZ activity in between. Like, and that's what I am doing right now. Like any day where we get like something really, really nice out, because we still haven't hit like our true spring summer season. Like I'm going to go take advantage of being outside and getting the benefits of like the sunlight and going to do that kind of stuff because it makes me feel better. And I'm still doing something active. And like, yeah, when I go outside now and jog, like I don't really have like I don't have it's a very different workout than what I would do on the treadmill, you know? So I don't have all those numbers. I'm not measuring my speed, and it's enjoyable. And at the end of the day, I'm still doing something healthy and productive, and I feel good about it when I'm done.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we're going to talk about a million different things in future episodes. But one thing I want to get really clear to listeners is, and Kevin and I both have our own stories of this. Like when I go up on stage to do men's physique competing, I enter on the stage anywhere from minimum 2.5% body fat to 4% body fat. Like that is actually, it's always been 2.5 to 3.5. That is super, super, super lean. It looks really cool, but I can tell you, you do not want to live in that space, right? Like you feel terrible. Ask anybody who's ever done it. You feel absolutely terrible. For me, it was hard walking up steps. Like I would see stars walking up steps. Like you do not want to be at a certain level of body fat percentage. And like, I think it is cool to set certain goals. Like Kev's goal is to lose 100 pounds. It's great to reach that. It doesn't mean you stay there. Right. Like, you know, and Kev, if you don't mind me saying this, like Kev's at 200 pounds right now and he feels great. Like, you know, there's nothing wrong with me. Like it's whatever, but there's an obvious limit. You don't want to be at 270 pounds and like almost pure fat. Like that's terrible. Like, it's not good for long-term health. But you also don't have to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger every day of the year. Most people don't even want to get there. Right. So it's like, that's why I think it's helpful to listen to Kev and I, because we can tell you about the full spectrum and also give you the real information. Like I promise you, you don't want to, you might want to look at like a certain thing like Kev when he was down 100 pounds or me when I was at 2.5% body fat. It might look really cool. But the problem is like, you need to cross-pollinate that with when do you feel the best? When do you perform the best? And if you can get those two things down and you're nutritionally sound, you'll look phenomenal. Like you'd be surprised. Like a lot of people tell me it's like, oh, I want to gain 30 pounds of muscle. It's like, no, you don't. You don't need to gain 30 pounds of muscle. Like, do you have any idea what that would look like? All you need is like reduce your body fat a little bit, start lifting weights, and we can coach you through that. Change up your diet a little bit, and all of a sudden you'll be surprised. Like you might add 5 pounds of muscle, but you decreased, 10 pounds of body fat, and all of a sudden like you look shredded, like you're the most shredded you've ever been. So I really calibrating properly, because when you see on those infomercials like these guys who say like, oh, I use this piece of exercise equipment that's for my abs. I do it for 10 minutes a day, but like his chest is super big, his arm, it's like, that's a whole bunch of smoke and mirrors, man. Like, really get into this and see the authentic side of weight loss and muscle building. And oftentimes it's not glamorous, but it can be fun. And especially like if you don't pigeonhole yourself into like one particular workout or one particular way of eating and all that stuff, you have different programs and different prescriptions for different goals. And you can change those goals throughout the year. Like sometimes for me, my goal is to like get super shredded. So I do want to get down to 3, 4, 5% body fat for whatever, let's say beach season's coming up or whatever it is. There are other times of the year where I just want to feel healthy, right? Like I want to replenish all of my nutrients. I want to focus purely on getting in as many fruits and vegetables as possible, because that's replenishing all the stuff that maybe I depleted during like my super cutting phase. And we'll get into the technicalities of all that stuff, but can you speak to like, yeah, having a very large goal is awesome because it forces you to like get better. Like losing 100 pounds forces you to get better. But also, can you speak to like, doesn't mean you have to stay down there. Like speak about your current state and how comfortable you are and the performance level and all that stuff.
Yeah. So the 100 pounds and the 150, I mean, I believe like short-term goals and then long-term goals, like both are extremely helpful, and I think they're equally important. I think the long-term goal like keeps you going, and like that was something that was really important to me to hit that number. Again, it wasn't to like stay there or live there, but it was like kind of completing the process, like kind of like what you've told me before, like, hey, that was really important for you, and like, guess what? Like you got to 92 pounds, and like you stopped on like the 92-yard line, or the 5-yard line. There were 5-yard, whatever. There was a little bit left to complete because that was important to you. And you said that and you told me like multiple times. And like, I would have a hard time believing that it still isn't, like the fact that you still want to get there. And, and at that time, like when we had those conversations, like, I was back up, like I was, maybe like 15 or 20 away, but we kind of like buckled down and focused on getting there. And again, it wasn't to stay there. It was just to do that. And like, for, where I am now, like, yeah, I'm at 200 and I'm comfortable there, and I feel good and I feel happy. And it doesn't mean that like I might snap into something in like a week or a month and say, hey, you know what? Like, I feel good now, but I know I feel better. And for a long period of my life, I did maintain like a weight of like 180 and the associated body fat with that. And the cool thing is, like I hit on earlier, I've done that before and I've lived there before. I didn't just get there. Like, I lived there for a long period of time. So I know I can do it when I want to do it.
Yep.
And, when I'm ready, I'll know. But like, for now, this is cool. Like, and I'm very content with that, but we would be lying to you if we said it wasn't hard,
Oh yeah.
And so I think that's what you get with this show is like, we're going to tell you the truth. We're going to tell you where we are, where we've been. And I think that's what, like, I don't know. I had to think about it. It's like, I've lost weight when I've wanted to lose weight. I have stayed where I've wanted to when I've wanted to stay. And I've also failed a lot of times. Like, I've said like, hey, at different times, like, I want to get here and I didn't. And then I had to revisit and say, like, did I really want that? Were my actions and things like congruent with what I was saying? Like, you have to really evaluate that, because if you start to think about it the wrong way, then you're going to get discouraged and think that it's a thing that you can't. And that's never true. It's really that you're not following through with what you said you were going to do, or it's not that important to you at that time,
Yep.
But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I think it's so important to know, like, because a bunch of people have fears. Like, I've talked to a lot of guys, like you and I coach a lot of guys, and we've seen like this, it works. Like, it just works. You do the fundamentals, don't do anything crazy, right? Like, stay in your lane and operate according to the fundamentals of nutrition, operate according to the fundamentals of cardio and strength training and so on. And it works. Like, if we look at a guy like, John Weber, who I think he lost 60 or 70 pounds, and he's doing fine. He's doing the same thing he was now that he was 3 years ago when we started. And he loves it. Right. So, but also having the control, like knowing, okay, I know that tomorrow, if you or I decide that we want to lose 20 pounds, boom. Right. Like, exactly the steps to get there. So it's really important for people to hear that, because sometimes they'll be doing the right thing and they lose the weight, but then they get discouraged because they stop doing it and then they gain some weight. It's like, yeah, of course you gain some weight. Right? Like, you stop doing the things that worked, but that's okay. Like, that's the other part. It's like, that's okay. Right? Go and enjoy your life during the holiday season, enjoy your life, or like whatever time, like, if you just got done purchasing a house or whatever it is, and like stuff gets a little wild. Okay. Like, relax a little bit on the fitness stuff, but then know that you'll get back to it. But knowing what works and like having those tools so you can easily plug and play it. Oh man, it makes all the difference in the world.
For sure.
All the difference in the world.
Yeah. And again, I keep going back to like just having some core habits in place. Like, I think, like, I just got a new pup, like a new dog, like 2 weeks ago. And like a lot of my time has been dedicated towards like training her and getting her acclimated. And then like the first week after I got the dog, didn't work out. And I'm like, it was bothering me. And like, I kept saying to a couple people who I was talking, I'm like, man, like, I got to figure out like where I can do this. And as I started to learn, and it was okay that I didn't do that for a week. Like, that was a pretty big change for where I was. I have somebody else's schedule who doesn't speak English, that has to go out, has to pee, has to poop, has to do all this shit. And somewhere in between, like, I had to figure out like where I can get my workouts in, or where I can, cook meals and meal prep or whatever. And I'm like, once I've learned that schedule, like this is week 2, there have been more days this week where I'm like, all right, she just went down for a nap. I've got like 90 minutes where I can probably squeeze in, like, safely get like a workout in for 60 minutes or for 45. One day she woke up and was barking to go out, and it was at minute 45. And so like I had to go do what I did for her, come back in and finish the next 15. But like the bottom line is, like, any core habit that is healthy, that you can really turn any action or activity that's going to help you. Like, I keep going back to that. Like, that was a pretty big change, but like, here I am 9 years later, I'm now taking care of this thing, and I'm still trying to find time whenever I can fit it in to at least keep up with that. And I just can't imagine, like, before I even started, like, that wasn't a thing.
Oh yeah. And I think it's important to know from your story and from mine, it is not a straight line. It's not like a straight increasing line. It's a lot of ups and a lot of downs, but the overall trend is up. And if you focus on that, like, man, it's amazing the amount of results that you can get. And yeah, sure. Like, we can point out, at some point we'll have to share it, Kev, like, cause we did different programs at different times. basically treating like different seasons. Like there's an on season, there's an off season, right? Like all those types of things. We can show you, like, yeah, if you want to, if you like, dude, I mean, what do you think the quickest amount of time? Now, again, please listeners, don't listen to this and say like, oh, it's some, like, you can lose a whole bunch of weight like in a minute, but I don't need to hear like that, but also realize that you can actually lose a lot of weight in a short period of time. And but you shouldn't do that all the time, right? Like if you got a vacation you're trying to prep for or something like that, or a big date coming up in a week, you can really, I mean, really like have a lot of progress in a very short period of time. You don't want to take it overboard though, right? Like again, no pills, no like depleting water, like anything like that. Like, but it does operate by the rules of like, yeah, if you put a whole shitload of work in and in a very consolidated period of time, you can lose a lot of weight in a very short period of time. Like, Kev, what are the actual real numbers that when you and I have tested some of these little micro programs, what do you think the most amount of weight you've lost in the shortest period of time was, if you remember correctly?
Yeah. So the one that comes to mind, I mean, of course we had you're talking about like a pretty condensed period.
Yeah.
Okay. So the one that comes to mind was, I believe the number was somewhere like between 15 and 17 pounds in about like 7 to 8 days.
Yep.
And again, like the key thing there is that, again, no supplements. I kind of look at it as like, there's the TV show, The Biggest Loser, right?
Yeah.
It kind of was a little bit of that model. Like I did have a very flexible work arrangement that week where like, yes, like I was burning, like we go back to the math and those basics, like I was burning a shit ton of calories. And the people that go on that show, they do work out, from what I understand, they do work out a lot of time during the day. And that may not be practical in most weeks, but if somehow maybe you take like a week off from work, or maybe you have a week off for whatever reason, like a lot of like what you're saying, Wes, is true. Like a lot can be done. And by the way, like I still was eating a healthy amount of calories, and I was tracking, and so you combine that with like, I don't know. I don't know if you remember the calories. I want to say it was like somewhere around 1,200. Could be.
Yeah. It was low.
A lot of people, yeah, I mean, it was low, but I didn't feel deprived. I was still eating a lot of bulk things that had very few to little calories and that actually are more filling, like fibers, vegetables, and that kind of stuff. So you have those two things going for you, like the meals and like a lot of water, and just like, I don't know, working out. I mean, kind of like working out like breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Like I was probably doing 2 to 3 times a day. Again, we're not advertising this. We're not saying go do it. I'm just saying like it can be done. And that was like a huge boost to get going, like, for that week,
Oh yeah. I mean, I would say beyond the actual number that was lost, those types of sprint sessions, and I want to put it out there in the universe right now. I think at some point it'd be really cool for you and I to have like a group of guys maybe come out to California and we'll do a week. Or so. I just want to. I'm not committing to that, but I think it'd be pretty cool to have that happen, to show guys what can really, really happen if like you focus, like a very, very focused session. Because yeah, you'll lose a ton of weight, but I think the cooler part is you start to push your body to limits that you didn't think you were capable of, not even in the same universe. I mean, when you started out, if you could you say like, oh, I knew that I was going to be able to do like 2 or 3 a days. I mean, there's no way, right? But then when you have a teammate, you have people around you supporting you, it's like all of a sudden it's like, oh shoot, like I can actually do this, and I can actually just string, like you said, like if I've got a week-long vacation, right, or something like that, it's like, man, like why not just go all out? Because then I come out on this other side, 17, 18 pounds lighter, but I now know myself as a new human, right? I know myself as the type of person who can actually do that at any given time. When I have that amount of time, like boom, I can do it.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I was still doing like my iced tea. Like I want people to know I was not eating like asparagus and water. Like there was more to it than that. Were things measured? Was I tracking like I had been whenever I've done a program that was successful? Yes. Did I have fewer items that I still chose to have and enjoy? Yeah. And some of them had protein. Like it wasn't just all vegetables, water, and like that, it wasn't that wasn't the idea. But, and even if you drop like 10, and then 2 of them come back on quick. Well, guess what? You're like 8 down in the time that some people, it takes them 3 to 4 or 5 weeks to lose 8 pounds. You know?
Oh yeah. I mean, some people never have it happen, you know?
Right.
I think the initial thing to learn is like, oh, I can actually do this, right? It's not meant for, because it kind of in the back of your head, like even when I got into the bodybuilding stuff, like it wasn't until I tried it, like it just didn't click. I never forget, I went to this one show and I was like, oh, I can actually do this. Like I never thought I had so much barrier in my head where I was like, oh, well, that's just not me. Like I don't have the DNA for that. You know, I don't have the genetics, like all that stuff. And I was like, well, I actually can do this. And then you get used, and then I got a coach. Like, you know, it's like those little things. But the first barrier is like, just take a little leap of faith. Like I guarantee you, I don't know anybody. Like literally at this point, Kev, you and I have coached enough guys to know. I mean, we've never run into a scenario where the guy's big bone and he can't lose any weight, right? I mean, have you ever seen it? I've never seen it. Like, because when we do it as a team, we actually see the data. You know, it's like, oh, all you have to do these things. All you have to eat these things. And it just works. It's just math. I mean, have you ever seen anybody violate that?
No, it's a myth. You know, do some people have larger bone? I don't know, maybe. But that doesn't mean, listen, like some people, right. So, you know, the whole bigger bone thing is a myth, you know, to me. Like, I mean, are some people wider? Are some people more broad? Maybe, but I've never seen somebody that doesn't have, you know, that wants to lose weight, that doesn't have fat and pounds to lose. So just that whole thing just doesn't apply, if you ask me.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've literally never seen it. I mean, you and I have been going about this thing, what, like 9-10 years now. And I've been doing it even before then. I've literally never come across one person who can't massively change their body composition, literally based off of fundamentals. Like one of the things floating around now is like bio individuality and all of these things. And like, oh, like some people should do keto and some people should do this. Like those are for the microscopic percentage of people. Like, you know, for instance, for like keto or something, you know, apparently medical journals say that it actually is a beneficial thing for people who are prone to have seizures. Right. But like people get caught up in these little, like they start arguing minutia. Like, oh, like you shouldn't have avocados. It's like, dude, operate by the fundamentals, right? We'll argue about the minutia later. Just please shut your mouth for 5 days and we'll show you. Like do the fundamentals and eat these things for 5 days and you will see the results. Like at minimum, you'll see it on the scale, right? You'll feel different. Like just before you go into a world of like, and I hate even saying this, but like before you go into a world of like getting information that helps you make excuses, like, oh, it's just my bones, it's just my genetics and so on. I mean, we haven't seen this in more than a decade, right? I have zero personal examples to show you of where like somebody did the fundamentals and did not get the results. And I say that not to sound like a jerk. I say that because it should be good news to you, right? It's just a matter of doing the stuff.
Yep. No, I agree completely.
Yeah. So, okay. So guys, here's what we're going to do. I'm super excited to have Kev on board. We're going to be launching the Rhomas men's weight loss team. This is the first official episode. If you're listening to this on podcast under the Rhomas Holistic Performance Podcast, we will be creating another podcast called Rhomas Men's Team Podcast. That's if you're getting it from a podcast provider like Libsyn or iTunes or Stitcher, etc. Now, if you're watching us on YouTube, then it's just going to be under the Rhomas name, but it's going to be on a playlist. So that way you can easily, if you just want to listen to the weight loss stuff and hear stuff that Kevin and I are going to do, you can go there. So the cool thing about it is if your goal is weight loss, then come into this channel, right, and learn about it. But if you want to extend out to like, hey, well, like how can I get some better mental habits or talk about relationships or books and so on, then just stay in the general Rhomas platform. So super pumped to have you, Kev. Like people need to hear your story, and it's awesome because you're so authentic and you tell people the real stuff.
Yeah, man. Hey, that's what works. That's what worked for me. And we'll keep passing that along to all the people, give them, you know, what they need to hear so that they can make, you know, similar progress and get the same results.
Yeah. And again, big thank you to Jana Dintz. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but big thank you. Yep. He's on his journey. If you guys see him kind of floating around in our community, et cetera, like, you know, give him a big shout out because he's on his journey right now. And yeah, man, Jana, it's super tough at times, but like, you know, we'll stick with you and keep following us, and it'll be cool. Check in with us actually, buddy. You know, maybe it'll be cool to have you on the show at some point. We can talk through your successes and your trials and stumbles and all that stuff, man. So it'd be cool, super cool to connect with you, pal. All right, guys, until next time, we will actually, you know what we have to do always? What's their homework? What's one thing they can do, Kev? I'm gonna let you call it out as the new coach on board.
Wow.
I know it's big responsibility, brother.
First one, I would say, I think so. I would say
origin, right?
What's
Remember the origin of why we do this. So the origin is because when Kevin and I first started doing this together, when he started on his journey, literally, and he kind of hit on it earlier, we met at the gym, and he thought we were just meeting to just talk, right? It's like, okay, like I needed a decision. It's like, do you actually want to go on this journey or not, right? And then when he made a decision, I mean, literally within 5 minutes, we're like, okay, like, let's start working out now. And he was like, what the hell? It's like, no, it's like, so that's why I want to give you guys homework. At the end of every single episode, it's like, what is the minimum thing you could do, like right now, that you're capable of? So Kev, you're up, brother.
All right. So with that in mind, then, I mean, the biggest thing is to just get started. So our getting started task, and maybe you didn't have this plan for today, is go outside and walk, or if you're able to do a jog for 20 minutes, go outside and get air, that's what we're challenging you to do. Just get started.
So, and the internet kind of crapped out a little bit, but I think you said get out there and walk, even if it's for 10, 20 minutes.
Yeah. Just walk. But it's all about just getting started. So maybe you woke up today and didn't anticipate doing any activity, or maybe you haven't been out yet and you're kind of just like, hanging out on the couch, watching something. That's going to be a better thing just to get started, ease the mind, do something active, do something for yourself. Just something simple that you can do.
Yep. 100%, man. Just get out and get started. Even if it's a 10 to 20 minute walk, go do it. All right, guys, until next episode, Kev, super looking forward to working with you, brother.
Yep. You too, man.
All right, man.